You good to go, Brett? You're on mute. Hey, Rod. I know there was some gamesmanship last week, and we in Nebraska obviously spent a lot of time talking about who you'd start at quarterback. Was there any kind of agonizing over that decision, or what kind of went into that for you?
You know, both those guys have played well throughout the fall camps, and throughout the year so far in practice. So, um, was there some thought? There's always thought because to me, I want that position being competitive and, excuse me, keep those guys driven. And when your freshman comes in and plays like he did and leads you to a road victory against Rutgers, sets a school record. There's something to be said about that, right? And Brandon's played a lot of football for us as well, and we won some games. We made a bowl game last year with Brandon. So each, to me, I told them both, both going to be ready to play. I don't know how it's going to fold out. We'll see how it goes. I said I'm not going to. Don't want you ever looking over your shoulder. Um, if you get hot, I'm gonna let you stay hot. I mean, that's just the way I've always coached that position. I don't want to. I don't want to have a rotating door. I want those guys to get comfortable, but I also want to be smart in how we utilize their skill sets if we happen to play them. So, um, I mean, we kind of knew going throughout the most of the week, but at the same time, I wanted to let it play itself out, and that's kind of what we did.
What did you get to see throughout the week, and how did you or when did you tell Brandon and Isaiah and how did they handle it?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure they understood and knew by the way the reps got divvied up, particularly as the week went on. Brandon got a little bit more reps with the ones. Isaiah was still getting reps with the ones because I want to keep him ready. But I wanted to make sure those guys had significant enough reps. I probably told them officially on Friday. You know, to me, those guys you don't have to tell them and a week's notice so they can get their mind right. They just come to work. They're great, man, and they support each other and they know we're going to do what's best for them. If I play one over the other, it's not because it's a slight of one. It's because one guy does something better than the other, and it's good against that defense in terms of a matchup. So there's no. It's not like uh, we got to have this guy do everything or this guy got to do everything that we want. We just want to make sure they're good at what they can do and be effective.
In your opinion, was that Brandon's best game for you, and if so, why?
I think, yeah, since Brandon's been here, it's probably the most complete game that we've had offensively. Probably the next one that comes to my mind that was really good was the Minnesota game the first year with AJ. I think those were probably two of the most complete, clean games that we've played. So there's some other games that have been really good that we've had to scratch and claw and come back from behind. The Michigan State game, the Wisconsin games. There's others that definitely were tremendous games that are great memories. But from a clean standpoint and being able to be balanced, like we talk about, being able to run and throw it and do both effectively, that's probably the cleanest one, the most effective one we've had so far.
Great, thanks, Rod.
Joey.
Hey, Ron. Johnny Navarro had his best game of his season or of the season on Saturday. What's gone into the decision of how much playing time or starts that he's getting?
Yeah, good question. We after we went on our little losing skid that we had, we just said we had to change some things up. We had to give some other guys some looks. And Kyron Cumby happened to be one of those guys. He's a guy that ran 10 300 meter in high school. Hasn't really had a true shot to be the guy. And you know, coach was like, listen, shake these things up. Let's take a look at things and evaluate it. And if we need to get some certain guys on the field, let's just see what they can do. We know what the other guys can do. Let's see what they can do. And at the same time, it may shake up the older guys as well. And I think they did that. I think it definitely did. It made Donnie um, lock in a little bit more. Not that he wasn't, but he was locked in. He was ready to play, and you could tell by the emotion of how he was playing. And I like to see that. I love. I'm a fan of Donnie Navarro. I think he's a solid. He's always going to be at the right place at the right time. He makes plays for us. Um, I just think he's a very good, solid football player. And to get those guys to be driven even more and play to the level that he did and play with that much passion and emotion, that's what we want from all of our guys.
And you said, you'll like to see that emotion from Donnie, and that's what he gave on Saturday. It seems like there's been some sort of buildup since we've seen him, have those extraordinary plays from last season. It's like he was this quiet guy and he slowly evolved into this more like ecstatic, confident guy. So what have you seen from that as far as like not only emotion, but like, does it have something to do with his overall development and progression with this team?
I think it's just the fact that he's continuing to become more comfortable in our offense. And when you become more comfortable, you let your inhibitions go away a little bit more, and you become your true self. You kind of let emotion out per se, and live a little bit more. You play with more enthusiasm. You're not as guarded. So that's what we don't. We don't. I tell our guys all the time. I don't want you being afraid to make mistakes. For God's sake, don't do that. Don't play. Don't walk around here like you're on eggshells, or that you're basically you're afraid to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. You learn by making the mistakes. Now we don't want to make the same mistake twice, but at the same time, I want those guys not to have a fear of messing up, because when you play with confidence and you play with that type of emotion like we did on Saturday, good things usually happen. And I think that's what kind of bubbled to the surface. And we've seen it. We've seen it in practice. We've seen it with this group for a while. That was just the first time I think we've been able to get everybody back, and the guys are locked in. So huge credit to them.
Thank you.
Joey, and then Carson after that.
Hey, Rod, you guys have been pretty clear that running the ball is a staple for what you want to do. I'm just curious, in your personal history, has this always been a philosophy? Was there a point where that became something that was a staple of your offense? How's that kind of been in your past and that you brought here?
Well, I mean, it's funny how the offense from whenever I played to where it is now, how it's completely evolved. When I played, it was a chuck and duck, throw it around the lot 60 times a game. We had maybe 2 run schemes, and both of them were blocked the same way with a draw. One was a front side draw and a backside draw. So it's completely evolved. The addition of adding the quarterback in the numbers game and the run game makes it a lot tougher for defense to defend, particularly if you have a guy that can make hay back there. So yeah, it's evolved, it's changed, but it hasn't changed recently. It's been this way for a while. When you look back at the days of West Virginia, I mean, you're talking about Pat White, Steve Slayton, and all the Vine, those guys were, like number 2 in the country in rushing, and that was behind Navy, who runs the ball every snap. So there's a history there. There's a history at Arizona. When we was at Arizona, we led the country in rushing, except for behind Navy, once again. So it's always been that way. I think recently, within the last 20 years, to where you want to be able to effectively run the football because we think it sets up the pass.
And then what kind, from your offensive linemen to your backs, what kind of mindset do they have to have? I mean, obviously it's more of a power, type, especially for the linemen. What do you need to see out of those guys to make that go?
From the tailbacks you're talking about?
And the line.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously offensive line, you want guys that, that can bend, that can move, that are physical. We're not going to line up in a 3-point step. I'm not going to line up in pro eye and come downhill on power and all those type of things, even though we run power. We're an inside zone, outside zone team, but we like to be physical with our inside zone, have a physical presence to that. And so you need guys that are strong, that can bend, that are athletic, that are nasty. And that's what you're looking for. From a running back standpoint, you want guys who, have enough size. Size is kind of overblown sometimes. We've had some small guys that have been spectacular. You want guys that can make you miss in space, that have speed, that once they hit the second level, that can take it to the house. Balance, shiftiness, vision, all those things come apart. There's a lot of stuff, but you want guys who, to me, ideally, you like to, when you hand that ball off, it's like the quarterback, when you hand that ball off to the running back, you want that defensive coordinator to hold his breath, 83 snaps a game, trying to say, oh God, don't let this guy get out. And, you work to try to find a guy that can do that. Until you then, you keep plugging away and you make the best of what you have and put them guys in position to make plays.
One quick follow-up. I'm sorry. Chase has shown maybe he could be that guy to make a defensive coordinator really hold their breath. Is that, do you see the same thing out of him, or I guess what have you seen in his evolution?
Yeah, he has some of those qualities, definitely. I mean, he's a guy that's got good size and he's got good speed once he gets out in the open. So he's, he definitely, probably of all the backs we have, he's probably got that quality the most of everybody we have. And we have some other guys that have speed, but Chase it seems like he's a little bit different, and that's been shown. He's shown that through camp. He's shown that through these practices, and we've seen it. Chase, the deal was we had to make sure he was caught up in the protection part, the assignment side. So that's why he was kind of, you knew talent wise, he was ready in terms of that. Assignment wise, was he ready? And Lovey said it all along. There's only one way to find out. Throw him in there to find out. Let's see. And that's what we did.
Thanks, Rod.
Yep.
Carson.
Hey, Coach. Indiana was held to -1 yard rushing. Granted, they did throw it 50 times, but do you feel confident that this Illinois team can throw it through the air if they have to?
Do I feel confident we can throw it through the air? Yes.
Like if Brandon Peters had to throw the ball 50 times, would you feel confident that you can still pull off the upset?
Well, yeah, I would think so. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say we're always going to have the confidence that we'll go out and try to win. So if we had to throw it 50 times, yes, I would have confidence in that. If we have to run it 50 times, I'm going to tell you yes. I mean, we're going to do what we think we have to do to win. And it all goes back to what I said. You got to have the ability at some point to be able to run it or throw it effectively. That is what balance is to me. Balance isn't 50-50 run, 50-50 pass. That's not what that is. Balance is being able to line up and throw the football, or line up and run the football when you need to, and to be successful. That's what balance is, to be an effective at both. So, yeah, I would say I would answer yes to that.
All right, thank you.
Scott Beatty.
Hey, Rod. Brandon Peters in week 1 against Wisconsin versus Brandon Peters this past Saturday. What was different for him?
Well, one, he played better. I think, week 1 was a rough one. We just didn't play very well at the quarterback position. We didn't play very well at any position. So it wasn't just Brandon, but there wasn't much help, and he didn't give much aid to anybody else either. So we coached bad. So that was a whole team lack of effort on week 1 against a very good football team. No excuses. Wisconsin is a really good football team. So, but they didn't get our best shot. Finally got our guys back to being healthy, and this was kind of what the team that we've been seeing in practice. So, did we expect that? I'm gonna tell you, yeah, we did, because we've been seeing it. Now, I've been harping to you guys about saying we got to take it from practice to the game, right? Because I tell you all that, and I don't know if you believe me or not, but that's exactly what we saw throughout the weeks of practice. But we have a chance to be a very good football team. But we got to have everybody healthy. We got to have everybody going in the right direction, pulling the rope at the same direction, same pace, and be locked in, because we're not going to have the depth that Ohio State and all these other schools do when you take on injuries or COVID issues, and it's just the way it is.
The term identity gets thrown around, offensive identity. What you saw is on Saturday is that kind of what the offensive identity is? Is that even a term you want to use?
We're going to do whatever we feel we need to do to win the football game. And if that means we line up and run it 90 times, then we'll do that. If that's what we think we can do. If we need to throw it 90 times, It's all about matchups. It's all about how do you match up with that person across from you. And if you feel confident about the guys, we're going in the back that, hey, we can handle these guys up front. Um, there's certain things we can exploit in the back end, and we're going to do that. So once again, it goes about balance. How balanced can we be? Can we be a team that can line up and run it when we want to, and line up and throw it when we want to? And you can do both. You can be pretty dangerous against defenses moving forward. But it's not easy, obviously. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. But I think we have some good pieces in place that have to play well at every game, and we got to be assignment free. And but when we do that and we take care of the football, we have a shot.
Last one, when you get ready for a team like Ohio State, presumably you don't see a lot of weakness there, especially defensively. Does that change your approach in putting together a game plan? Do you feel extra pressure to be very fine in what you're calling and how you're going to script this out?
Yeah, I mean, you could see why they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. I mean, there is not a weak spot anywhere when you watch them on defense. And I shudder to watch them on offense because I know some of the coaches there, at least one of the coaches and he's as good as a coach that I've ever been around. So I know how they're being coached. I know what they're being taught sometimes in terms of they're being coached at a high level is what I'm saying. Very well coached. But on defense, when you look at them, there's not a weak spot anywhere. So it's going to be matchups in terms of us. How do we match up in certain spots across the board, and can we do things? Can we do things to get guys in space? Can we do things to win one-on-one battles? It's going to be tough. I mean, they're ranked number 1, 2, or 3, whatever they are, for a reason. And but we'll go out, we'll fight them, we'll do our best to see what happens, put our guys in the right position, hopefully, and see how it goes about.
Thanks.
Before we move on here, just a reminder that Chase and Sydney are doing that Zoom with Canada Media. That's about to start up. So get on that link if you need either of those two guys this week. We'll have a recording of that as well. So moving on to Alec and then Colin.
Hey, Coach. Going back to when you guys first started looking at Donnie Navarro when he was at Valpo, what about his film really stuck out to you?
Yeah, well, I think Coach Stoker was the one that I mean, it's been a while, who actually kind of brought up Donnie to us when he was thinking about transfer here, or did transfer here. So you watch his film and you thought, man, this kid has a chance. Without seeing him in person, just off film, he's definitely a guy that if he's going to come walk on, you definitely take him as a walk on because he can help our football program somehow, some way. I don't know if we imagined him helping us as fast as he did, but it's obviously a plus, and we're glad he's part of this program because, to me, he's what you want your kids, your players to be. He's the guy that's out here early every day. He's working on his craft, working on his skill on air, working on his route running, working on his footwork by himself. In the whether it be in the dark, whether it be the early morning, he's the guy that's working his craft every day. This game means a lot to Donnie Navarro, and it's important to him. And so guys like that always seem to find a way to find himself on the field.
How much do you think that extra work by himself outside, like you mentioned, in the dark, early in the mornings, has kind of helped him separate himself since he's gotten Illinois and earning a scholarship and then have success like he did on Saturday against Nebraska?
I don't think there's no doubt that it does. Because I think Donnie understands he's a good football player, but Donnie also understands everybody has limitations, and he's got some. But he tries to overcome those limitations as much as possible by outworking people. That's bottom line. He's outworking people, and hats off to him because he's constantly he comes to practice every day. In my opinion, with something to prove. He's trying to prove every day that he has something to prove on his football team. And there's a lot to be said about people who have that type of mentality.
Just one quick follow-up. What do you think some of those things are that he wants to prove every day when he comes to practice?
I think he wants to prove that he belongs. But not only does he belong, that he can be one of the better ones out there, if not the best one. I mean, that's whether he does or doesn't. I think that his mindset, that's what he's trying to work and strive every day.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
We got about 10 minutes left here with Rod before we get on to Brandon. So try to limit your questions here, hopefully to one apiece to get through everybody left. We got Colin and then Matt Stevens.
Rod, I know you got to use a little bit of the Brandon Isaiah mix in Wisconsin. And then you had to wait several weeks before you could try it again. Was there anything you learned from that game in particular, how you utilized those two guys that you either carried over to Nebraska or maybe made you change some things up when trying to use both of them?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been a plan that if we had to use two of them, how do we go about it? How much of it do we do? And we'll continue to keep building on that as moving forward as we go. I told Isaiah that the performance he had from at Rutgers, the performance we've seen in practices, he's earned the right to be out there. And the problem with Isaiah is we don't run him at wide receiver all the time because we got the other guys, and I'm repping the quarterback, so I don't want to put him in a situation where he's not, I won't say familiar with. He knows all the routes, but you just haven't did it as much. So you got to be smart how we handle it, how we utilize him, and we'll keep working those different situations with those guys. But yeah, we'll continue to keep building.
Thanks, Rod.
Rod, we hear next man mentality all the time with all different types of coaches. It's almost become a cliche, but did you realistically think you would get this out of Julian Pearl, especially since Saturday was his first career start? And what are you seeing from him that has made him so successful in the minute that he's been out to jump in for Paucho?
If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd have told you no. If you'd asked me this question in when do we start practice? I'm lost. I was going to say September, August, but it wasn't because I know we got canceled in August. Anyway, back during fall camp, I saw it. I saw Julian kind of flip the switch. He become a man. I mean, he was moving. He was playing with physicalness. He was doing everything that we'd hoped that he'd be able to do. Now, is he clean? No, but I tell you what, I know we can win with him. I know we can play with him. And once again, he proved it again Saturday. He went out there, played in Paucho's place, and I thought did a tremendous job. And I am extremely happy for Julian. And he gives us much needed depth at the tackle position should something happen to one of those guys. And who knows, the way this kid's playing, I've seen crazier things happen. Sometimes you get in there, you don't want to let that thing up. You don't let your position up. So he can create some competition later on.
Thanks, Rod. I appreciate it.
Doug.
Hey, Coach, you talked about being primarily a zone team. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there's a clip out there of Kendrick Green taking out two guys. It looked like it was on an outside zone play. Can you just talk about his skill set that allows him to do that? The ability to do the stretch step and get to the second tier, all those things that you want a guy to do on that outside zone play.
Yeah, it was actually on a screen play, but he was zoning out to an area. And we tell our guys, an old coach used to tell us a long time ago, every good man get one, every great man get two. So Kendrick got 2 blocks in one time. So Kendrick's probably got as much talent than anybody we have because he's able to move so well laterally, vertically, and he's got just freaky strength as well to go along with a mean, nasty attitude. That's what you want. That's what you want. Offensive linemen, guys that thrive on finishing, and that's what he does. So we're so glad that KG's one of ours, and to me that's what makes him special. It's just he cares. He cares so much. Brandon got sacked in the game that one time, and it was partly because KG didn't keep coming on the slide technique, and he felt so bad. And we told him, listen, we get it, brother. You ain't never got to worry about us questioning your level of support. You know what I'm saying? You just go out, make the plays, do what you need to do, make it right the next time. So this young man cares a great deal, and I think that's what makes him a tremendous football player.
Thank you.
John Spini.
Yeah, Coach. How hard of a recruiting pitch did you have to give Kendrick to come over to offense?
Well, it was kind of funny because he was a D lineman, and that's what he wanted to play, and he wanted to go over there. So when I first got here, they told me, keep an eye on Kendrick. You may get him, depending on how he does at D line. Of course, and I watched him. And I thought, yeah, okay. But he was all in the D line, and then we had at the time Larry Boyd. I think he became academically ineligible. Then all of a sudden we said, okay, what are we going to do? There's not many options, and that's when we decided to move Palcho from guard to tackle, and put Vidarian from right tackle to left tackle, put Palcho at right tackle, and that opened up a guard spot. We said, okay, if KG is willing to come over, he can go from being fourth team D tackle to first or second team guard, and we did that. We put him in there, and it took him about a week for him to let's say he's going to be our guy. We just got to get him ready. So it wasn't a lot of recruiting pitch. It was more just showing him, hey, we can get you in the field a hell of a lot faster than what you are on defense. And he kind of jumped. I think he was a little reserved at first, but I think pretty sure now he'll tell you it's probably the best move he's ever made.
Dan?
Hey, Rod, you mentioned before that you knew one of Ohio State's defensive coaches well. Who is that, and what's your relationship there?
I knew the offensive coach, Kevin Wilson, who's the offensive coordinator. Wilson's, I worked with Wilson in Indiana when he was the head coach in Indiana. So I was with him there for a year, but I've known him for a long time, just throughout the business. And, he's as good as a coach as I've been around. Sharp, X and O wise, tremendous coach. Yeah, he's one of the good ones.
Thanks, Rod.
Coach, you've been a part of a lot of upsets over the years. What's kind of the common denominator? What makes those things happen?
Well, I mean, it's to me, it's your kids, it's your program, the culture that's being laid down in your program. That's the first thing. And your kids, you got to believe. You got to believe that you can do that what some people say is the impossible. That's the reality. And nobody understands the work that you put in, or the kids put in this building than themselves. So when people say they can't do things or things can't happen, but there's a belief, if there's a trust factor, if there's a confidence trait within your team that's high, and there's a brotherhood, then the guys will want to fight for each other, and great things can happen. We say it all the time when, if I slap you with an open hand, it stings. If I hit you with a clenched fist, it's all five of you working together. It hurts a lot worse. Same deal. When our guys are together, they can move mountains. So that's the whole key. Can you keep that locker room together? Can you build the inner spirit, the inner workings inside this building? Do you believe more than what other people believe in you? When you do, look out. Things can happen.
Thanks, Coach.
Finish up last question from Josh.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for sticking around. Over the past few games, we've seen a 100-yard game out of Mike Epstein, one out of Chase Brown, and then this past week, both of them north of 100 yards. How important has their progression been for the production of this team? And what's the biggest change that you've seen in the running game from Wisconsin up now until what happened against Nebraska?
Probably the biggest change we've seen is we became more consistent. There's not as many missed assignments from an O-line standpoint, from a running back standpoint, from a quarterback reads standpoint, tight ends in the fits. We've gotten some things cleaned up, which has extremely helped. So that's the first thing, and that's credit to the kids that basically kind of looked at what they did wrong and then taking the coaching allowed us to get them right. And then two, I just think whenever guys get more reps of what they're doing, Chase has gotten more reps, Mike's been getting more reps. When they start getting more reps and they become more comfortable in what we're doing and see things a lot better, hopefully good results follow. And I think that's what's kind of happened.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Rod.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Brandon is here.